I realized that all the guys that I was growing up with, we were all playing the same thing, having learned, you know, we were all taught the same rudiments, and, you know, everyone plays a double stroke roll, and everyone plays a paradiddle, and everyone plays a rattle-McHugh, and so forth and so on. We all are armed with the same information. And so once I started actually playing on the drum kit and trying to apply all that information to the whole drum kit rather than just my left hand and my right hand, I started noticing that all the guys that I was listening to on record and all the guys that I was growing up with, fellow drummers, were all playing the same way. After I stopped emulating other drummers, I tried to find a way to separate myself from all the other drummers out there. And being the oldest instrument on the planet, it's very tough to do that. It's very tough to be original these days. Yeah. I'm talking about creativity and stuff that's in here. You don't go to a PIT, or you don't go places to learn it. It's something that's part of your personality, and it's something that you have to communicate, and you find your whatever instrument you choose to communicate it on. And so I came to that conclusion pretty early in my career, trying to find a way to play things a little bit differently, you know. And like 5-stroke rolls and stuff, instead of, I mean, when I was playing one bass drum, I would do 3 notes on top, da do 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 do. You know, that's how I would take that 5-stroke roll. Instead of right, right, left, left, right, I would apply it that way on the drum kit, you know, and you play a 5-stroke roll in a different way, you know, maybe da, da, do, da, da, you know, it's still a 5-stroke roll, and that's how you can incorporate the rudiments into like a drum fill, you know, over a whole kit. When I heard John Bonham, that solidified some of the ideas and the things that I had in my head about trying to make things sound heavier. He's the most successful in my mind of doing that. He sounded different than everyone, even though he was playing like parts that the big band drummers had played, and Stuart Copeland's another. He was playing reggae drums, but he was doing it with his heavy rock vibe. Mitch Mitchell, he was playing, he was a big band jazz drummer, you know, but Mitch Mitchell played with this black rock guitar player from who knows where, and the coming together of those two styles made for something fresh and new, in my mind. Yeah. When I heard Jimi Hendrix, I said, I mean, it changed my life, you know, and the same with Led Zeppelin. Yeah. And people like John Bonham, he changed the complexion of contemporary rock music. I was doing a seminar a couple of weeks ago, and there was this kid that had this most ridiculous twirl in his left hand. I mean, it was through every finger, and it was really beautiful, but the only time he could use it was when he wasn't playing the drums, you know. It was great for impressing people, but you couldn't apply it to the instrument. So I've always tried to come up with different ways of twirling the sticks that are actual twirls, but ways that you can really incorporate it, but where it's practical enough and fast enough to where you can incorporate it instead of like just being like a one-dimensional twirl, you know, like something like this, you know, you can get into like a figure-8 pattern, you know, between like the first 3 fingers and reverse the direction of the stick, and you put the two together, and so what you come up with is something that looks a lot cooler and reads to people far, far away. The guys back in the nosebleed section, that's who I play to, you know.
I bet everybody would love it if you could slow that down a bit.
Well, it's hard to slow it down because you have to depend on the impetus of the stick, kind of. But it's just basically, it starts like this. It starts from this position, but you know, what works for me may not work for someone else, because I originally started playing with an orthodox grip. And it's just like this, the same thing, excuse me, the same thing this is, but that's always stays there. It's kind of like the Pee Wee Herman homosexual twirl. Well, this is like the Arnold Schwarzenegger version. And it's between the first 3 fingers. I try to do it slow, but I reverse the direction, because if I go in one direction, you see I get all the way out on the end of the stick.
Can you try with that?
I'm supposed to twirl this, right?
Tommy, I noticed that you're using these carbon fiber drums. Not too many guys are using them. I don't know if anybody else besides you.
Yeah, I got them a few years ago off of Yamaha. I had a snare drum shell that a friend of mine down in Texas made for me, and I just wanted to kind of experiment with it, you know. It's a material that you can make really, really thin, unlike a wood shell. If you made a wood shell equivalently thin, it would collapse on you under the tension. Mm-hmm. But with carbon fiber, because of some of the characteristics of it, you can control the resonance of the shell by the way you run the fiber and stuff, and you can also run a really, really thin shell, which I think that gives it a little bit more top end and a little bit more bottom end at the same time, and it's a louder drum as well. And it's a material that, unlike wood, it's not subject to the elements, you know, like humidity and stuff like that. It's very resilient. I mean, like the floor toms and stuff, you can actually stand on the drums, you know, even though they're mounted by the shell, you can actually stand on them. It also, you can cut a really, really sharp bearing edge on it, and it'll stay that way. Unlike a wood bearing edge, you have to leave some width to it so that it stands up over time, you know.
Right.
Whereas with the carbon, because of the stiffness it's so tough, you can really do a really crisp bearing edge. And on these drums, like on the 8-inch snare drum here, and I have different thickness snare drums, you know, all the way from a 3-inch piccolo up to the 8. And you can change the characteristic of the shell as well by some of the drums. We've put a Teflon bead over the bearing edge, which gives it a little warmer sound. Mm-hmm. And some of them we've left that off, and it gives it a brighter, more attack sound. So there's a lot of different ways you can modify the sound of the drum without actually changing the whole shell. Whereas, like if you have a free-floating snare, of course, you can change the whole snare shell. Right, right. But this is the same application, but to every drum, you know.